Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. And a happy Orktober to all of you. Now, a couple weeks ago, Philip Sin, who's an STL creator who lives in Hong Kong, reached out to me. Now, he's the guy who previously created that group of STL files for his project called Marrow Cove, which was cat people set in like an Asian fishing village type setting. And I showed it off in the video, and people thought it was great. Warboss Fitz actually printed him up as one of his many armies. But Philip Sin reached out to me again with his latest project for Orktober, and it's Skarrtrench here. So it's a fantasy orc army, and it's not just an army. It's an army. It's a ton of terrain, including the fortress you see in the background there, and the trenches, the trench line system that you see in the front, in addition to a massive orc army. Now, I promised that I would make a video about it, showing it off, giving my thoughts on it, and I've been putting it off, and it suddenly occurred to me there's only a week left in October, and there's only a week left in his Kickstarter campaign. So, to make sure that I get something put out to honor my agreement with him, this is going to be a completely unscripted video. I'm looking at these for the first time, pretty much at the same time that you guys are. So let's take a look at what's in store in this particular project that Philip Sin's got. So I've got the basic Kickstarter page up here, so you can see what it looks like in its entirety. And already that's an impressive setup right there. I especially like the trenches. I can see a lot of use for that, both in fantasy or in historical. But I'm going to jump on over to my mini factory so we can take a look at each of the units here. Give my first impression on them. Like I said, this is unscripted, so you might hear me cough, sneeze, clear my throat, stutter, all that good stuff, because I need to get this video out in time to be fair to Philip. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So here's the entire range of all the models. So I opened each one of these in its own separate tab so that we can get a closer look up at the models themselves. And like I said, this is my first time looking at a lot of them beyond just the overview here. So first, we've got the trench system. So it looks like it's completely modular. Now, that would take a lot of printing to get all those pieces, but from the look of it, they're designed that once you print up enough pieces, you could have any kind of trench system you want. You could fill a 4x4, you could fill a 6x4. And it doesn't look like it would be too difficult to paint. The detail looks simple enough, but I like how it's got here sloped edges. It's got it's a fairly deep trench system. You could put a 28 millimeter model in there and it will be invisible. It's not like it's those trench systems where you can always see everything. So this would be awesome if you're in either fantasy or, like I said, in historical. Who doesn't like a good trench system that you can print up? Now, it might take you a while to print all this stuff up, but I can definitely see that being useful. So what do we got next here? Looks like we got some cavalry of various kinds. So these little goblin guys, the masks are pretty heinous. I mean that in a good way. I like the wolf. The wolf looks good. And it looks like we got a shaman of some kind down here on the left. So these are probably your heroes, is what I'm guessing. So some variety. They can ride a wolf, they can ride a spider, be on foot, or you got your casting type here. A lot of detail. I mean, you can look even on the weapons that there's wood grains and scratches on the armor, so there's a lot of attention to detail here. Let's see what we got next. The fortress. All right, so these are the buildings themselves. Let's take a look through here. So we've got the finished product. Obviously, this had professional painted. So let's take a look at the buildings. I like it that it looks very ramshackle. Like this absolutely screams orc, but you could use this in any kind of game like Fallout. You could use this in any post-apocalyptic setting. You could use this anywhere where you would have collapse of civilization, people throwing together whatever they can for shelter. You could just leave off the tops here where you have the clear orc, iconography and things like that. But this would be great for a skirmish board. Lots of line of sight blocking, lots of different levels. Looks pretty good. And then you can see it's all modular. And we've got a gatehouse here. Very cool kind of leather coverings here. And I don't think this would take too long to paint. A couple rattle cans and a dry brush would get you a nice tabletop standard. And then if you want, you could go back and do the detailing like we've got over here. So we've got a gatehouse of sorts. Oh, there's what it would look like on the table. What are some of the other buildings? We got some more guard towers. Oh, nice. So this is like a section of the wall. A lot of guard towers. Oh, my goodness. Look over here. We have a very unfortunate person. And altogether, that's what it looks like. And just from a glance at this, these two look like potentially the same model, but each of these is a different building. You can print as many of these as you want. Looks like this is a 4x4's worth of terrain. But it wouldn't be too hard to print a few more tiles and buildings in order to fill in the flanks over here. So, I mean, just by itself, that's enough terrain with the trenches and the fortress, and I think they look pretty darn good. So let's keep looking through at some of the models here. What do we got here? A pump wagon. I'm not going to touch that one. Some kind of a chariot, I guess you'd use it. I wonder if you can equip it with any kind of weaponry and things. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so it's a battle wagon of sorts. And then you have this horse that a whole bunch of... Oh, I see. They've gotten... It's from a medieval theme army, and they got the woman captured, and they're taking her on her own horse. Oh my gosh, Freud would have a heyday with that one. But look at the detail. I mean, this would be a lot of fun to paint. Very, very detail oriented, but looking good. Looks like we've got a couple different options here. One that looks like a boat, one that looks more like a battering ram, and then the stolen cavalry. Okay, next up, proper wolf chariot. There's those wolves from that first one. Very ramshackle. I like this, so they have the little axe blades hanging out on either side. That's pretty neat. Alright, so there's the various pieces. Looks like how it would be printed. Everything comes with supports. That's pretty standard. I don't know too many STL producers that do it unsupported. Or only unsupported, I should say. Alright, that looks pretty good. Goblin Stone Thrower. Well, everyone likes a good catapult. I like this, how the counterweight is a goblin head. And then you got your crew with it. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do with a stone thrower to make it unique, but stuff like that definitely does the trick. So that looks pretty nice. Okay, the giants. Now, that's pretty gruesome. He's got slobber connecting from his mouth to him. Now, I'm curious for size. It looks like because they're in two pieces. Let's see if there's a picture of them. There isn't one of them next to an actual model. We'll have to see if maybe some of the other photographs here will show it next to a regular model so we can get a judgment of size. So it's okay. They look a little, I don't know how to describe it. A little pudgy? I'm surprised with the level of detail that you have on the other ones. These guys seem like they're lacking that a bit. Let's move on here. Trolls. Got all kinds of trolls here. I like this. He's picking up the horse. The other ones have got clubs and stuff, and they're in various poses, but this guy's actually going to throw the horse at you. That's fantastic. And this guy's barfing all over you in the top right. These guys apparently went on a bit of a diet. Either that or they've been working out. Let's see. I'm never a very good judge of base size on squares, but these look fairly quick to paint up. They're not as detailed as it seems those goblin vehicles were. So you could probably do this pretty quick. All right, what's moving on here? Troll witches. Okay, so you got your magic casters. Oh my, they are rather old, aren't they? You got to be careful as they walk they don't kick something. I'm not saying any more, because I want to keep this family friendly. Very hag-ish. Cool detail here with all those skulls attached. Oh my. I'm not going to touch that. If any of you see it, you could look at it yourself. I'm not saying anything else. Goblin Nasty Assassins. Now that's interesting. What's the difference between an assassin and a nasty assassin? So we got this guy hiding in the barrel. This one's kind of interesting. He's garroting the knight. So clearly these goblins have a thing in for the medieval knight army. But otherwise, this guy looks like your nice, good, standard, roguish assassin. But this guy's kind of cool, hiding in the barrel. Get a view of different angles here. What's next? Netters. Now, some of you might notice, especially as we get a little further in, when I was glancing at just the overview of the army at first, it's almost like a one-to-one comparison with the Warhammer Fantasy goblins. So a lot of the stuff you would see there, you would see here. So here's your ability to get a nice big goblin theme army without necessarily having to pay GW prices. And so far, I think the sculpts look pretty good, nice and detailed. Look at the ropes here. They got individual threads. It's kind of a cool touch here, having skulls acting as the weights on it. And then this guy accidentally got himself all tied up. Nice. Ah, the fanatics, of course. What goblin or orc army would be complete without fanatics? So it's a nice touch. Instead of a ball and chain, well, this guy's got the ball and chain over here on the right. This guy over here's just got a rock around a chain. This one looks like something magical. Like that's supposed to be a wisp of smoke or something arcane. Looks like it's actually a pot. That's what it is. He's swinging around a cook pot, and that's the soup. Not bad. I like them. They got some character. Again, look at the level of detail for the damage and the wear and tear. On the ball and chain, on the rocks, on the pot. Very textured. Here's what they would look like on the table. All right, moving on. The Doom Diver Slingshot. Now, I'm curious how they can get away with calling it that. They might get a cease and desist from GW if they've copyrighted the term Doom Diver. But again, another really iconic iconic model for the goblins. But it looks pretty good. You got this guy up here. Let's see, what other angles do we have? Oh, good. Top view down, so you can see what it looks like. We got him in the various stages of deployment. Looking good. Giant Cave Beast. Okay, we got our Squig Riders here. Again, this one they don't look too large. If that guy's riding it, it's kind of cool. They built a little palanquin for him out of wood. So you could put any of your characters on there. That looks pretty nice. And then you got your herd. Decent squig herd. This one's got the guy riding inside of it. Oh my goodness, look at this one down here. We got like the amoeba split, and it hasn't quite fully finished yet. Then we got this dude, looks like he's only got one leg, unless I'm not looking at it properly. And I can't see it from there. But, okay, you got your squigs. Looks like I did that one twice. Oh, no, this is the squigs, but with cavalry. Ah, I like this up here. He's dangling a goblin in front like a carrot. Oh, that's fantastic. It's the little things like that that really make these armies fun. That's why I love orcs. The only reason I don't immediately jump into painting a massive orc army is because you need so many bodies. Anybody who's painted or collected horde armies, can I get an amen? Right, nice. Okay, let's see what we got here. Goblin Swarms. Now, that's a new one. I don't know if those were in GW, but that's a cool idea. Just these little teeny goblins just overwhelming you with sheer numbers. Look at these little guys. Even if you didn't print these up as models, these would be great additions to big creatures, vehicles, bases of heroes, larger monsters, stuff like that. It'd be really good, like accessory type guys. All right, what do we got here? The bolt thrower. All right, we got some artillery. I mean, if you're going to use artillery, you got to use the Doom Diver. But, of course, you got to have some options. But I imagine everyone wants to do the Doom Diver. All right, pretty straightforward. Nice and simple. Moving on. Okay, here's the core. Warriors and archers. And my goodness, there's a lot of them. I'm wondering if these guys are actually double the size, if they're supposed to be your sergeants, or if they're just enlarged to show detail. But from the look of it, they might actually be bigger. Let's see if we can get a picture of them painted. That's kind of neat. He stole a knight's helmet, and now he's wearing it. This is kind of cool, this weapon here. Looks like that. Someone who knows more about Star Trek. It looks like that. Reminds me of that weapon that the Klingon used. If you know the name of it, put it down in the comments. Other than that, this looks pretty good. Nice basic troops. Oh my. Holy crap, they actually crucified her. Okay, so the Goblin Army took a slight interesting turn here. And then they're flipping you off. Okay, so this army definitely has some character. That's something you will not see from GW for sure. I'm thinking these are just enlarged to show texture, you know, like on a box of cereal. But, okay, so you've got archers. You've got up here sword and board. You've got spear and shield. You've got just spear. Well, they have shields too. Various poses. Here's your attitude orcs right over here. So quite a few options. And they all look pretty good. All right, Goblin Shamans. So here's your smaller casters, either as cavalry riding on a wolf or just walking on foot. So it looks like already there's a lot of different characters that you can produce here. Okay, moving on. Night Goblins. Yeah, very, very similar to the ones that you would see. I mean, they're Night Goblins. What do you expect? Cool idea for the drum there. Decent banners. I mean, if you already have models from previous, you could easily add on to it with these, or vice versa. Again, decent detail. I like that there. Pretty good. Okay, here they are with their different equipment. They look very... Oh, what's the word? The GW goblins, I wouldn't say clean isn't the right word, but very smooth. Whereas you look at these guys, they look like they have pockmarked faces, they have warts and pimples and bumps and all that stuff. Like they look more disgusting, like what you would expect for orcs, whereas the GW ones are very cartoonish. So these look a little more realistic, grimdarky, grungy. I don't know. What would you call it? Different loadouts, sword and shield, so on and so forth. All right, nice job. These look pretty cool. I like these. Then the Wolf Riders. All right, so we've already seen the wolf models. We've already seen the goblin models. Here we're just putting them on top of each other. Now I'm looking at the feet here, because one of the complaints I always have about cavalry is when they don't have enough touch points to stick to the base. Sometimes the pose to make the cavalry look really neat, like really dynamic, like he's moving or running, leaves you with, you know, a toe touching here and a toe touching there. Kind of like here. You just get the tiny little pads of the feet. Over here, it looks like you only have two places touching. Here, I'm not quite sure what's going to be touching. This front paw here on the right, the guy on the right here, and maybe a few toenails, but you may have to do some green stuffing or put some heroic rocks in there or have them, I don't know, there might have to be some work on them to make sure that they're nice and sturdy on the base. They look nice, but I'm foreseeing potential extra work just to make sure that they stay on their bases. And we got different loadouts. We got spears, we got bows. Do we have, what else do we have? No, it looks like that's, yeah, spears and bows. Okay. All right, we only got about 4 or 5 left here. Spider Riders, of course, because goblins don't just ride on wolves. Now, personally, I could not bring myself to print spiders. I've lived in too many states where arachnids are a thing, and once you find enough of them in your house that are like dangerous enough to kill you, yeah. So they look nice. Even if I played this army, I don't think I'd ever print these guys. Just personal preference. Moving on. Oh, sure. Let's talk about a giant frickin' spider. So how giant are we talking here? That's a pretty good size. Do they have a comparison? Doesn't look like it. But that looks pretty big. We'll have to take a peek when we look back at the larger picture. Maybe we can see one to get an idea. Looks like this one's got a catapult on its back. Interesting. Mobile artillery. That's kind of a cool idea. So here we get a peek in how it's assembled. So each of the legs, the body, and then the apparatus on the back are all printed separately. I wonder if there is an option to print it all as one. Probably not if they have this, but I mean, if these things are as big as they probably are, you must have a really large build plate to be able to build the whole thing at once. So I think it's a good idea here that they're broken up. Looks like he solved the point with touch points that I was mentioning earlier. So a couple of the legs, they put a pile of skulls just so you have something bigger to hold on to. So that's important. Nice job there. All right, boar riders. Now we're moving on into the orcs. So that's enough of the goblins. Looks like I'm looking, just counting across the top, out of about 20 different unit types, it looks like about 15 or 16 are goblin. The rest are orc. So we got our orc cavalry. The helmet over here is kind of cool. I always like when they have like that massive grill on the front. Makes him look very aggressive. Oh, he's the hero. Okay, that makes sense. He's in heavy armor and everyone else is just chilling au natural. Okay, let's move on here. Orcs and wild orcs, melee and bows. This is an interesting idea. Look at this guy over here with the claws. I mean, you expect to see the sword and shield, you expect to see the spear, dual wielding here, but that's kind of a neat idea that wild orcs would build themselves claws. Makes sense. I mean, if they're wild, they're going to copy animals. Nice job on the banner there. That looks really good. Okay. The Black Orcs. Again, I'm surprised they can use that name. Then again, he's in Hong Kong, so maybe he can get away with it. So you got your heavily armored orcs here. Fairly straightforward. Here we go. Again, I like these kind of weapons. It's like a cross between an axe and a halberd. Sword and shield, archers. Got some variety here. And based on what I saw in that other, where the guy who had the helmet like this in the top left, where he's the sergeant, obviously you could print these guys up and use them as sergeants if you want some variety in the poses. All right, Orc Boar Chariot. Another pretty standard vehicle we got here. Bunch of different boar choices. Not sure how many folks would demand such a thing, but it's there if you want it. And then last of all, the Black Orc boss on a wyvern. So this would be the cabbage equivalent, if you know what I mean. Fairly good size, although it might expect it to have been a bit bigger, but 3D printing can always scale it up, so I suppose that doesn't matter. You can make it as big as you want. Okay, so overall, I think either the terrain or the army would be a great addition. And so getting both of them together is pretty nifty. So if you guys like what you're seeing, you want to help support Philip and his project here, the Kickstarter is still going on for another 7 days. Do keep in mind the funds here are in Hong Kong dollars. So when you look at the pledges, they're not in US dollars. Just keep that in mind. Nice picture of the whole board here. Another picture of just how much stuff you get on this. So I'd be really curious to see anyone who backs this and then prints up like a really cool World War I trench theme. That would be awesome to have an entire 6x4 board using these kind of trench systems. And so if you're interested, you can head on over. It lasts for another 7 days. Here's all the details about everything that we looked at. Okay, there's the spiders. You can see just how big it is. So yeah, they're a good size. Definitely a good size. So head on over. It still lasts for another week. Apologies to Philip for not getting this video out a bit sooner, but just like with the cat people, I think these are quality designs. They look good. They got a lot of character, and they're perfect. This Skarrtrench is perfect, just in time for Orktober. So let me know what you guys think. What's your take on the pieces? If you already have an orc army, would you be able to add with this one? If you're thinking of starting one, would this be something that would be a good foundation? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Until next time, keep your dice on the table, and I'll see you then.